What's up, IGN? Joshua here with Eric, IGN's TV expert. Talk about some Walking Dead. Talk about last night's episode with full spoilers. The episode was self-help, and it was all about Eugene.
Yeah.
And some big revelations. So just right off the bat, what do you think of the big, twist with Eugene?
It was interesting, because again, we don't never want to talk about things that are coming up that they haven't reached in the comics, but now that they have reached this, I was wondering, because they veered off so much, would they stick to the comics where Eugene is a fraud?
Yeah.
And the answer is, they did stick to it.
Yeah, season 5 has been very loyal to the comics.
This one is it's interesting. They've kind of delved back into being more loyal this year.
Yeah. Robert Kirkman, I believe, said that to us in an interview you can find on the site.
Yes,
how do you feel about Eugene now that we know Mr. Mullet himself is a fraud?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to say I'm glad that the episode addressed the mullet, because
several times.
Everyone was like, what's up with this dude with the mullet, the scientist with the mullet? Now we know he's a fraud. I mean, of course, the question is, what do they all do next, right? Because this was the only real drive for them at this point, beyond survival. Was like, hey, we can do, especially for Abraham. We'll talk more about him. As for Eugene, though, I'm glad they revealed this, because Eugene has been a weird character for The Walking Dead. He's much more sort of heightened and sometimes even cartoonish. He feels like a Danny McBride character, not just because of the mullet. So I'm glad to kind of at least lay all the cards on the table and be like, okay, yeah, this guy is not for real, and there's a reason that it doesn't all add up. To see how he can function with them, because there is a part of you that's like, yes, screw that guy, after all this. I don't think that will necessarily happen, but I am curious.
I think it's a commentary on what we would all do to survive.
Right.
And because he has no survival skills.
Right.
So he was trying to make himself important, to survive. And of course, that had a big effect on Abraham. Let's talk about him now.
Yeah.
This is also a big episode for him, because Abraham's sort of journey was tied very closely to Eugene's lie. And now that's a lie. It's like, where does he go?
Right, yeah, because it was interesting to see Abraham's backstory. I mean, I shouldn't say his whole backstory, but I think, enough. It was the pivotal moment where, obviously the zombie apocalypse had already begun, but then he lost his family. They freaked out seeing him get so violent, even if it was protecting them, took off, got killed, and how Eugene, gave him hope. And it did explain, we often talk about how Walking Dead is kind of a blunt show. It's not the most subtle show. So in Walking Dead manner, it wasn't subtle, but I still think it worked. Like, why had Abraham been so gung-ho? Like, we gotta get Eugene here. And it's because it was the thing he'd put everything into, because he lost his family. And I think that works.
Yeah, it's a nice emotional episode. And also, so the show actually has no sort of overarching goal now, right?
And that's interesting. Look, I mean, it's funny. I was talking about how sometimes I'll see people, criticize a certain episode of Walking Dead as like a filler episode, and was this a filler episode? Is next week's gonna be a filler? The thing is, Walking Dead is really just about these people surviving, right? And Eugene was the first time ever, I mean, I guess since the end of season 1, where for 2 seconds the CDC thing, where there was any semblance that did not pan out, any semblance of maybe there is a goal. So now we're kind of back to what Walking Dead usually is, and maybe they could have stretched this out a little further, but at the same time it would have been kind of leading the audience on longer than I think they wanted to.
It'd been really disappointing.
It would have been really disappointing. Again, it does go back to, how depressing do you find this show if it's like there's no hope? But I guess it is about survival and adaptation. And like you mentioned, the idea of, they were saying most of the people, they directly said last night something I remember them even mentioning at Comic-Con, which is most of the people left now are the people that are tough enough to survive, with a couple of exceptions. And so now it becomes about, will the Eugenes of the world, will they toughen up too, or will they be left by the side?
Yeah, there's also a sort of a weird scene we want to talk about. It was really dark.
I do want to say, this was the darkest episode of Walking Dead ever. Just visually,
not in tone, but
I kind of get what they were trying to do, which is, when you watch TV shows, you kind of have to accept the fact that when people turn out the lights, it's still totally, you can see everything. You see everything. And this time there must have been a discussion, what if it was more realistic, and they're in this bookstore and the lights are out and you can't see anything. But it went on for quite a while, and it was kind of odd, where I'm like, okay, I know Glenn's talking, but
adjusting the brightness on your TV. Was this on purpose?
So that was a little odd, but I guess it was kind of a fun little experiment.
And one more thing before we wrap up is Eugene had a moment where he saved everybody from a bunch of walkers. but with the fire truck, but you tell it better than I do. But
well, I just always think it's funny, and I kind of understand it's got to be malleable, but just how durable are walkers, like physically, is something I don't think we quite have a handle on. I understood the episode when they were waterlogged, the ones that have been soaking in water, that they'd be kind of mushy and fall apart. But it did seem kind of dramatic in that scene that a fire hose could just really blow them apart, you know? Like just water could just destroy a
It's almost like explosion, like exploding.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
When they got hit by the firework. Because that's a strong pressure, like a fire hose.
It was a strong pressure.
But is it that much? I don't know.
Yeah.
Although these zombies have been around for a while.
They've been locked up in there. They hadn't been getting any nourishment, however much you want to say nourishment for a zombie. So I'll accept it. It gave Eugene his moment.
At the end of the episode, did you feel that was still a cool zombie killing scene, or was it too much?
I thought, at this point, they do want to kind of be creative and think of new things. So it was a stretch that I'll give them, because it was, I'm a, horror gore fan. And so it was fun to see, this water hose just blow a head off a zombie. It's a little bit, maybe it fits that it was Eugene who did it, though, because Eugene is like this bigger character we were talking about. So when he kills zombies, it's, in a bigger way.
Metaphorical zombie slaying.
That's right.
Very cool, very cool. So that's our thoughts on self-help on last night's Walking Dead episode. Let us know what you thought in the comments. And for all things Walking Dead, stay right here on IGN.